Hi, and welcome to Lesson 45 for English 3 A2C. Today we're going to be looking at Voice and Choice number 4, Extra Credit Poetry number 2, and we're going to have some workspace in class to complete your outline and rough draft for essay number 3, which is due at the end of this week on Friday, the 5th. Real quick, our old assignments are all the readings to prepare for the outline were due. Your Voice and Choice number 2 and 3 have been due at this point. Your ILP completion for the ILP class is also due, and your essay outline was due on the 19th of February. Upcoming assignments are your rough draft, which is due this week. It's the only graded assignment that's due this week. Your Voice and Choice number 4, which is going to be due next Friday. And your extra credit, the things they carried readings, and extra credit poetry assignments are both due in mid-April. All right, let's take a look at our learning targets for today. For writing, we're going to produce a short audio recording in response to a common voice prompt, and then you're going to choose a career path specific voice prompt to respond to. And this means you can generate audio responses to common and specific prompts that reflect your interests and values. And that's why we're doing these voice and choice assignments. We're kind of getting a collection of audio on your interests, your values, and what you believe about the world. So for literature, we're going to distinguish between one kind of literary device and one kind of figurative language. This means you can identify both concepts in selected poetry and explain the figurative language technique of irony. So that's what we're going to be looking at today in our literature lesson. And for our informational lesson, we're going to rearrange our work in the essay number 3 outline assignment to fit paragraph form for our rough drafts. This means you can construct a rough draft that meets 5-paragraph essay structure using that outline. So we're going to use some Workspace today. If you still need help on your outline, I can help you out with your claim, counterclaim, and 2 supports to get you going on that. If you're done with your outline, we can work to move it to rough draft and get you the credit that you need for that rough draft assignment as we work towards our final draft for essay number 3. All right, real quick look at our week structure. There is a Monday, Tuesday recorded lesson. There is a Thursday, Friday recorded lesson, and Wednesdays are personalized learning time from 10 to 10:45 a.m. I will run my ELA recovery period, and from 12 to 2:30 p.m. on Wednesdays, I'll have office hours. And during those open office hours, you can log in and get assistance on anything that you want help with. I can walk you through any of the previous assessments or assignments, and you can catch up on those. All right, so we're going to take a look at Voice and Choice number 4, which is due next Friday on the 12th. The voice prompt for this assignment is, what is one thing you wish people understood about you? The choice prompts are new for this assignment, so if you want to do the artist, if you are interested in art, you're going to answer the question, how can art be used as therapy? If you're interested in poetry, you're going to answer the question, poetry elevates and celebrates the ordinary. What ordinary thing can you celebrate? If you're interested in business or design, you're going to answer one of these questions. For business, how does a business become a local success? For aviation, what personality traits should pilots have? Or for trades, how much vacation time does trade work allow? If you're interested in journalism or law, you'll answer the question, what does the saying, if it bleeds, it leads mean, and do you agree? Or for law, how do you think lawyers deal morally with defending clearly guilty clients? If you're interested in sports or medicine, you'll answer one of these questions. For the fittest, how has the pandemic highlighted the importance of nurses? Or why is discussion around the topic of CTE so intense in football? And what are the sides? If you're interested in teaching or psychology, you'll answer the questions, how do students learn best? Why? Or for psychology, what do you think a consciousness is? That should count as philosophy too. If you're interested in gaming and game design, the question for this week, or for this assignment is, when is a game designed poorly? If you're interested in music, the question is, when do song lyrics count as poetry? And can you give me an example? Kind of similar to the voice prompt from last week. And if you're interested in the military, the question is, what stories interest you the most about military experiences? And if you're interested in writing, for narrative, what does good dialogue sound like? Or for film, how does lighting affect emotions in film? So those are the options that you have. You'll be choosing one of those prompts to respond to in your choice response. And we're actually going to go through how to do that voice and choice response one last time today in class for anybody who's not familiar with or comfortable producing those. All right, so voice and choice number 4 is due next Friday on the 12th. In Google Classroom, it looks like this. It's under progress assignments. It is titled graded voice and choice, so it is a required assignment. Remember, everything that has the words extra credit in front of them are extra and just designed to kind of boost your ACT skills before we get there. Everything that's marked graded is aimed at the essays and the class in general. All right, so this one's due next Friday. The first response is a prompt that everyone's going to be responding to, and the second response is a prompt that you're going to choose from 10 different paths. To record your response, you're going to click on the link that says click this link to record your response. It'll take you to vocaroo.com. You just hit the record button in the middle of the screen to record and hit the square to stop recording. If you'd rather type your response, that's okay too. But at the end of the year, we're going to be doing a project that involves looking through these recordings, and I would really like that to be your backpack, one of your backpack pieces from this class alongside your essays. I think it would be a more interesting and personalized backpack piece. So if you're doing these recordings, that will be a more valuable piece for you. So I do recommend doing the recordings. You're just going to click on the Save and Share button after you're finished um, recording. And after that, you're going to grab the link that it gives you down here and copy that link. And you're going to paste that link back into the Google slide deck. And you're going to do that for both responses, for the choice and the voice response. Your voice response, your voice prompt for this week is, what is one thing you wish people understood about you? So kind of talk about, what's one thing that you wish people understood about you in general? And then the 10 paths are the 10 questions that I read at the beginning of the lesson. All right, voice and choice number 4 is coming up next Friday, and the rough draft is coming up this Friday. And those are really the only 2 outstanding assignments in your near workspace. All right, moving on to our literature. So this is aimed at the poetry number 2, extra credit poetry number 2. That's going to be due in mid-April. And in this lesson, we're going to distinguish between one kind of literary device, and that's going to be parallel language, or parallelism, and the figurative language we're going to be looking at is irony. And this means you can identify parallelism and irony in this poetry and explain the figurative language technique of irony if you're asked about it, because irony gets it really does get poorly explained a lot. We'll try to break down irony into a bit more digestible pieces. So in Google Classroom, it looks like this. It is a progress assignment. It does say extra credit in front of its name, which means it is not a required assignment for this class. If you don't do it, it won't count against you. If you do it, it will help you, and it will help you prep for the ACT, specifically the ACT reading test. All right, so the literary technique for this assignment that we're looking for is parallel structure. So parallel structure means using the same pattern of words to show that 2 or more ideas have the same level of importance. That sounds really boring on its surface, but when you use parallel structure intelligently, you're increasing the interest of the audience, you're making your point more thoroughly, you're creating a list of things that go together, you're grouping ideas in the mind of your audience. That was a parallel structure example. And it can also happen at the word, the phrase, or the clause level. So it can be a collection of words that are parallel, phrases that are parallel, or clauses that are parallel. So let's get into the examples, because all that sounds complicated, but when you see them, you'll be like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. So at the words level, it can be something as simple as Mary likes hiking, swimming, and bicycling. We're all ending in ing. Hiking, swimming, and bicycling. Or Mary likes to hike, to swim, and to ride a bicycle. Or Mary likes to hike, swim, and ride a bicycle. So all of these are using the same verb form, and by using the same verb form, we're creating that parallelism. So we're creating that parallel structure. Hiking, swimming, bicycling, those are all different activities, but we're all ending in ing here. We're all using the gerund, the ing form. And then down here, to hike, to swim, to ride, to infinity, and beyond. We're using the infinitive, which just means putting the word to in front of the present tense. So to hike, to swim, and to ride all go together in parallel structure because they're all the same structure, or they're all the same verb tense. And same deal with hike, swim, and ride. So you can't mix verb forms in parallel structure. That's kind of the game. For example, this is not parallel. The production manager was asked to write his report quickly, accurately, and in a detailed manner. So quickly and accurately, yeah, those both end in ly, where it's following the same rules. But in a detailed manner breaks that rule. So that's not parallel. Here's an example that would make that parallel. The production manager was asked to write his report quickly, accurately, and thoroughly. So instead of saying in a detailed manner, we said thoroughly. So now that one is parallel because we're ending in ly every time. Mary likes hiking, swimming, and to ride a bicycle. It's not parallel. Mary likes hiking, swimming, and riding. Not only is it a parallel, but this one sounds better. So this one's not parallel. The teacher said that he was a poor student because he waited, ed, until the last minute to study for the exam, completed, ed, his lab problems in a careless manner, and his motivation was low. So we have two eds. To make that into a full parallel structure, waited until the last minute to study for the exam, he completed his lab problems in a careless manner, and lacked motivation. So you can kind of hear a little bit of the weakness in this example versus this example. By saying his motivation was low, we're kind of robbing the sentence of its emphasis on the things that this kid was like doing wrong. And when you put them all in the same tense, you emphasize the amount instead of just emphasizing the stuff in the list. So parallel structure can begin with a clause too. Again, if you change the pattern or the voice, you're going to break the parallelism. So if the pattern changes mid-pattern, it breaks the parallelism. Here's some more examples. So this one's not parallel. The coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, that they should not eat too much, and to do some warm-up exercises. So we have that, and then to do some warm-ups. So to keep this clause going, you could say the coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, that they should not eat, and that they should do some warm-up exercises before the game. We're keeping the repeated structures. The repetition is really the thing that's going to give away parallelism. Or you could say the coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, not eat too much, and do some warm-up exercises. So you can remove the clause and just use verbs too, like down here. This is like without the clause, you're just using verbs. When I say the clause, the phrase that begins with that, these are clauses. All right, next example. So this is not example. The salesman expected that he would present his product at the meeting, that he would have time to show his slide, and that questions, oh no, would be asked. We lost the he. So the parallel version is that he would present his product, that he would have time to show his slide presentation, and that prospective buyers would ask him questions. Oh no, this isn't a he. How is this still parallel? We're still using the right verb tense, would present, would have time, and would ask. So in this case, the verb is more important. All right, lists after a colon that stay in the same form also count as parallel. So the dictionary can be used to find these word meanings, pronunciations, correct spellings, and looking up, oh no, ing, irregular verbs. Let's try this. The correct way for parallel. It could be used to find word meanings, pronunciations, correct spellings, and irregular verbs. So this is just a list of nouns with no verbs in it. Looking up here is a verb, and it throws off our parallelism. A couple quick ways to detect parallel structure. So if you look for the words and or in your paper or in your example, those can give it away. Look on either side of them to see if the items that are being joined together are parallel. If you have several items in a list, that can be a giveaway. If you listen to the sound of the items, for example, like, are there a series of ing words beginning of each item? The first poem that you're going to look at in the assignment is the song DNA by Kendrick Lamar. If in that poem, look for repeated verb forms because he uses a lot of parallel structure in the opening to that song. You can find irony in it too, but I think that you can definitely find more than one example of parallel structure in DNA. All right, so let's talk about irony now. Irony is the type of figurative language that we're going to be looking for in this assignment, and irony is probably one of the more difficult figurative language to detect. I'm going to give you a tool that I use to find it. It kind of helps me find it on a regular basis. It's whenever there's tension or there's comedy that comes from expectations of the audience being messed with. So what you expect to happen or what you expect something to mean is what's being messed with, and it creates tension or comedy. So like if you feel tense while you're watching a movie, there's probably some kind of dramatic irony going on. If you laugh at a movie, there's probably some kind of verbal or situational irony going on. So a lot of situational irony creates comedy, a lot of verbal irony creates comedy, a lot of dramatic irony creates tension. So we get both humor and horror from irony, actually. It's funny because we just think of irony as, oh, that's ironic, and then we're like, well, is it really ironic? I'm not sure because it's complicated. Really, it's just the expectations of the audience are being messed with. It comes in three common flavors. Dramatic irony, which is the audience versus the character. The tension is between the audience knowing more than the characters know. The situational irony, where the tension is in the context versus the actions. The context of the scene, or the context of what you're talking about, makes the actions being described and discussed goofy or weird. And then there's verbal irony, which is meaning versus intent. And verbal irony is probably, it sounds like the most complicated one, and it generally is, but verbal irony also includes sarcasm. And sarcasm is immediately understandable because it hurts. So those are the three types of irony. In our assignment today, you should be able to find verbal irony in the third poem, and you should be able to find situational irony in the second poem. So just kind of like understand that when you're doing the assignment, you should be able to find situational irony in poem 2, and you should be able to find verbal irony in poem 3. There's no dramatic irony in the examples that I have, unless you could find some in Kendrick Lamar's DNA and I haven't noticed it. But I think that you'll be able to find situational irony in the second poem if you look for it, and I think you'll be able to find verbal irony in the third poem if you look for it. And let's go on to talk about what those are. So for this assignment, you're going to be highlighting the examples of irony in blue as you find them. So just know that that's the whole of the assignment, is to highlight the irony examples as they show up. So the first type of irony, and the type of irony that we aren't going to have in our assignment, is dramatic irony, and that's audience versus character. And this is when the audience knows more than the characters, and this creates tension. So for example, we as the audience know that Anakin's going to be Darth Vader in the prequel films for Star Wars, but Anakin doesn't know, and Padme doesn't know, and like Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't know, and none of the people around him know that he's going to be Darth Vader. before the end of all this. This creates a tension between the audience knowing what's going to happen and the characters not. In fact, most prequel films for any series have some degree of dramatic irony. So, like if you were to watch like the prequels to the Alien films, you know that things are about to pop off when they walk up to an alien egg on a planet. You're like, this is not going to go well for those characters. A lot of horror films, speaking of aliens, use dramatic irony to create suspense. Okay, so the next type of irony that we have is situational irony. So that's where an expected outcome doesn't happen or its opposite happens instead. It requires your expectations to be messed with. It can be tragic or humorous, but it's always unexpected. Here's an example of situational irony. So when we find out, spoilers, that Harry is a Horcrux, that is thwarting our expectations that the Horcrux is going to be an object. So when we find out in Harry Potter that Harry Potter is actually, spoilers, one of the Horcruxes for Voldemort and must be destroyed to destroy Voldemort, uh, that's situational irony because it's not what we expected to happen. A couple more examples of situational irony would be like a doctor who is secretly a murderer because you expect him to heal people, or a fireman who goes around and sets fires because situationally he's supposed to put fires out. The last example is verbal irony, and verbal irony is going to be something that you see um, in your poems, especially in the third poem by Emily Dickinson. So in verbal irony, what you're saying is the opposite of what you mean. So this is just a kind of a cool thing that we can do with language, because you don't always have to tell the truth. In this case, verbal irony is what you're saying is the opposite of what you mean. So there are four types of verbal irony that you can run into. There's sarcasm, which can be aimed at a person. That test was easy, when in reality the test was hard. Or like, those shoes are amazing, but really the shoes suck. Or understatement, aimed at a situation. It's merely a flesh wound versus your arm has been cut off. So if, like, let's say that what happened was your arm's been cut off, but what you say is it's merely a flesh wound. So the orange is the irony. You're saying it's merely a flesh wound, but really in reality your arm was cut off. Or for sarcasm, you're saying that test was easy, but in reality everyone in the class thought that test was really hard. Another good one would be like, let's say you're not actually a tennis player, you are in fact Kendrick Lamar, and you say, I just win again, then win again, like Wimbledon I serve, which is such a good line. So like he's saying that he's like winning like at Wimbledon, which is a famous tennis match. So that's aimed at the situation. He's saying he's so great that he wins like Wimbledon. Socratic irony is where you play dumb. So a good example of that would be like, let's say the principal called home earlier that day and told your parents that you had a really bad day at school, or like something happened at school that was bad. And then they say to you when you get home, so how was your day at school? So that's Socratic irony because they know that it was bad and they're just kind of giving you enough like room to get yourself in trouble. Socratic irony is pretty rare. Sarcasm is really common. You can definitely find overstatement in DNA because I kind of gave you that example. And understatement is really common for humor. All right, hopefully forearmed, you can go into your extra credit poetry number 2 and complete that. We're going to have one more extra credit poetry assignment and 2 more extra credit the things they carried readings before we get back to school in April, so keep your eyes peeled for those. Again, those are aimed squarely at passing the ACT, so if you need to do some ACT prep outside of an ACT prep book, those are there for you. All right, so our last learning target is that we're going to rearrange our work in the Essay 3 outline assignment to fit paragraph form for our rough drafts. And this means you can construct a rough draft that meets the 5-paragraph essay structure using the outline. What we're going to do in class is we're going to work on claims, counterclaims, support 1 and support 2 using the outline. And if you're already done with that, we can work to take your outline to a rough draft. Again, the only thing that is due this week is essay number 3, rough draft. Next week, your voice and choice number 4 is going to be due. And I'm going to give you some new extra credit assignment. It'll either be the things they carried reading or the third poetry assignment. I haven't decided yet which one it's going to be. And I'm going to post your assignment for the peer review for this essay. If you didn't have me last semester, that peer review is going to be a really quick assignment. All right, we've gone through our learning targets in our 3-part lesson. It's about 25 minutes in. We're going to finish before 30 minutes. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you all have a good afternoon, or morning, or night. Bye.